Welcome everybody back to the E-Team Sponsor podcast. I'm Sean Connors, co-founder and CEO with E-Team Sponsor. Pleasure to be joined today by Dr. Ryan Lazarus. Dr. Lazarus is the clinical director at Lazarus Wellness. He's board certified functional medicine practitioner, certified clinical nutritionist, certified personal trainer, and rehabilitation specialist. He's got his master's degree in nutrition and functional medicine, bachelor's degree in exercise science. Owns Lazarus Chiropractic, corporate wellness consultant, researcher, entrepreneur, and all in the health and wellness industry. So Dr. Lazarus, for part two, we appreciate you coming back on.
Happy to be here again. Let's do this.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it. I pressed record this time, and we're gonna get the whole thing on there this time. So, hey, we appreciate you jumping on. Right now we've got a lot of, as you and I have talked about before, there's a lot of just a lot of information out there, a lot of misinformation potentially. And we're really excited to have you on today and just talk to people about really what they can do, things that they can control as they try to navigate all of this uncertainty going on in the world around this pandemic. So, but first, man, let's jump in a little bit and talk just a little bit about your story, how you got into, the medicine path that you're on. Grew up in the Bay Area, went down to Cal Poly. But talk to us a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you're at now.
Yeah, I would love to. So I grew up playing sports. Elementary school was playing all of the conventional American sports. And, my kids right now, I start to become a little selective about 12 and started to focus on soccer, baseball, and then eventually football, and played all those and through high school, and then selected the sport that was best for me, or I guess what I was the best at. That selects you, right? So soccer became, my sport, but loved baseball and loved football, and learned a lot about myself in that. And I'm sure many of your listeners understand it and observe it every day, what athletics does to our confidence and our understanding of ourselves and our understanding of others and teammates. And so learned vital lessons throughout my childhood of athletics, mostly losing and failing. And, that applies to all of our lives in the corporate world and our family world. And so I was grateful for that. And, being a great teammate, learning the social implications of being a good athlete, learning resiliency. So, all of those were really important to learn. And then I unfortunately had a serious injury when I was 18, and the path that I thought I was on, which would be playing soccer collegiately, it went like that. So just quickly on my injury, not a torn meniscus, not a torn labrum in the shoulder, right? Not a muscle strain. I crushed my organs. Playing indoor soccer, just, staying in shape, ready to go to college, 3 months in the future. And, emergency surgery opened me up, saved my life, removed my spleen and my pancreas, and changed my whole world. And so as a result, I have had many, many health issues and challenges, and still do. But have been on a journey ever since that happened to try to understand how you can achieve optimal health throughout all these different challenges. And using athletics and all of those skills and failures, that helped with a lot of the processing of how I was healing myself and now how I heal other people. So it happened for a reason, and I'm very clear on that. And I went through a very, very dark time of 10 years of, feeling like a victim and angry and denial, many, many emotions that many people will go through if you're listening and you've been through some type of serious event in your life. And then there's a switch where you realize, this is your destiny, and my destiny now, and my purpose in my life is to share what I've learned with my challenges and help all my patients is the best I can. So, that's it in a nutshell, without going off on an hour or two.
No, it's great. It's important. I think it's so important. We love, here at E-Team Sponsor, we like to provide an opportunity for sports, the coaches, the student athletes, for them to share their story. And I think it allows people to make a connection. So you've been able to share your story and kind of what led you down the path to where you're at now is so important. And to our listeners, they're high school and collegiate coaches, athletic directors across the country. And right now, a lot of them are just getting fed with so much information about how to lead, how to keep their athletic departments clean, healthy, safe. So much going on, so much information out there. And that's why we were so excited to get you on here and share some of your wisdom with us today. So I think we'll jump right into that. You've been counseling your own patients. You have your own patients that come in to see you at your local practice. You've got an opportunity to talk to some athletic directors and coaches across the country today. Share with us maybe a little bit about, what types of things are you sharing with your clients? And then, what do you think is important for a coach or an athletic director to know right now about all the information that's out there?
Yeah, it's a great question. Excited to answer it. And I think it's most important to start with this model that I briefly alluded to on the last call and I've talked to you about. And it's what we all go through, whether it's COVID or any type of adversity in our life. It's just kind of human psychology that we kind of move into this fear phase that eventually moves into this learning phase that eventually, hopefully, moves into kind of a growth and creation phase. And again, it can be applied to any aspect of our life. And you take COVID and the same algorithm or flow is there. And some people are stuck in different phases. And the fear phase is where a lot of us were in March and April when we first heard of this, virus that was taking over the world and not knowing how serious it was, how virulent, not knowing the viral dynamics of it. We all remember, I'm sure we all remember for our lives where we were, in March and April of 2020, when, our life as we knew it was basically stopped, right? And so now we're recording this in late July, we know more information, but that flow still is very important to understand because there's a lot of people that are still stuck in fear. And that's because the narrative that is shoved into our psyche through our environment and through the media is fear-based. And it's, this is what's going on. And once you think you got this figured out, that's incorrect. And now this is correct. And just facts go and myths go. And everybody is just really, really confused right now. And I don't have all the answers. Nobody has all the answers. And so what we're left with is a wise approach of how we can consolidate all this information and come up with a great plan. The personality traits, or I guess the symptoms of a fear-based phase is, blaming others and, hoarding supplies and, constantly watching the news and talking about it all the time and binge eating and drinking. And we saw that. There was all kinds of text memes and, comedy shows about what was going on about that. And I am talking to patients right now, 4 months later, that are still doing that. And so I'm saying, okay, if you're in that right now, you have lost your ability to learn and create and apply these things into your life and move on to it. It's very hard for your physiology to be in a fear mode at the same time as growth and creation. So I'm trying to move them to the next thing, which is learning, right? So how do we get them to the next phase? And that's, anticipating change, embracing that our habits and our rituals are different and that there is a meaning behind this. And it's time to start looking at our habits and saying, what can I improve? What can I remove? What can I add? Reading books you've ignored or podcasts that, you've put off or saved, right? There was a lot of opportunity with the time in the last 3 months to be able to explore those things that people looked at as, I want to go get my coffee and I want to go to this restaurant and, I want to go. And I was the same person, but just it was a lot of blaming, a lot of anger, and not a lot of looking at the opportunities, appreciating what you currently have, being grateful for those things. That's kind of moving from fear to the learning. And then eventually what we want is that creation, right? That growth zone and that phase. And that's an important part. And there's a lot of tasks and habits that I'm going to hopefully introduce that your listeners can do as well. And it's like looking at your bad habits and eating well and exercising and considering your life's intentions and sharing this and kind of the new path that you're on with other people is just give out positive energy and chi. And so that's a long 5-minute explanation on how I look at this and what I'm trying to do with suggestions to patients, family, friends, because I see the whole spectrum. I have people that are stuck in fear, and I have people that are looking at this as an absolute equalizer, blessing in disguise. And so that's what I'm doing. It's what I've been doing. I will continue to do, because again, this thing isn't going away. I mean, once we think we understand it, and then, baseball starts, and then boom, you get this. It's literally it's a big mind F right now, where we're trying to plan, as athletic directors or coaches, are we playing or are we not? What are we doing? And as business owners, and I have an 8 and a 10-year-old. Are we doing practice? Or are we not? It's a very, very mixed up time. And so that's what I try to instill with them and help them along the way with it.
I love it. I love it. We talked about it a lot, this positive approach to really trying to get yourself out of fear, be able to focus on that learning phase. I think that's where still a lot of people are. And we've had conversations with our clients, athletic directors and coaches, that have said, gosh, I just don't see how we're going to play this year. I don't see this. What are some of the techniques, or what are some of the things that a coach or an athletic director who's in these leadership type positions, what are some of the things that they can do to go and move from fear into that learning phase?
Well, the best thing they can do is gather objective information. And that's, again, a challenge, right? And so in my opinion, not being an AD or a coach, or, a direct coach, assistant coaches on,
sure.
5-year-old soccer coaches. I believe being honest and straightforward with everybody. Everybody knows that we don't have all the answers, right? And just saying we have a plan A, B, and C. And, everything starts with your mindset, and then your actions from there. And so just saying, this is what I'm thinking, being super transparent, and then thinking about the health and safety and kind of all of the important liability things that people need to do. And so I think it's for an AD listening, it would be just being human, being a good leader. This is a time to shine. This is where, where your personality and your beliefs and your morals and your values come out, and sharing that, and saying, when we have information and it's safe for everybody, we're going to do plan A, B, and C. And I think that being a parent, listening to other coaches or athletic directors tell my family and my kids, that's all I ask for. And I've also listened to people that say, we're going to do this, and it doesn't quite make sense. So that would be my explanation, is just, it's time to be a leader, and moving from just explaining that these are probably normal fear-based emotions right now, and we want to move you to where we're learning and we're gathering information, and eventually where we're all going to be better for this. I mean, I'll get into it when maybe a little bit, but this thing is happening for a reason. It's a great equalizer. And the narrative is, there's so much noise about fear and hysteria, and we're never going to be the same. And that might be true, but again, there is a lot of brilliant opportunities that are available now and in the future that we quite can't see right. So
I want to jump into that for sure. And I think just a couple notes that I took away there. Leading, who you are is how you're going to lead, and being vulnerable enough to say, I don't have all the answers, is so important. I would choose to do that myself. I have chosen to do that myself. I think that's great. A great recommendation for any leader, athletic director, coach. Be vulnerable. Understand, hey, you probably have some core values, some value-centric beliefs. Choose to hang on to those right now. Hang on to what you believe in, and but be vulnerable enough to be able to say, I don't have all the answers. I think that's a great place to start and focus on learning. So you talk about opportunities. What types of opportunities are you seeing here? I know one that we talked about previously was, people are walking around. There's people that are walking around healthy, and there's people that are walking around vertically ill. They're upright. They're living. They're not necessarily thriving. They're just surviving. So what types of opportunities do you see out there for anyone that, that's dealing with what we're going through right now?
Yeah, the vertically ill population, if you've never heard that before, it's very interesting. And so I'll expand it. And I guess the listeners and the viewers can just look inward and say, is this me?
Yeah.
You know, in health and wellness, we believe, or generally the general populace believes, in the absence of symptoms, I'm healthy, right? So if I'm not taking a bunch of medications or I'm not lying down horizontally ill, then I'm healthy. And it's like a black and white, but there is a big gray, and that gray is another pandemic I'll touch on, but it's that vertically ill population, which is, you know, a human being was designed to wake up with a clear head, with vast amounts of energy, and being able to move, not being achy and sore, and going about their day with mental clarity and emotional stability, and physically energized and spiritually connected. And you know, there's many different aspects of a thriving human being. And in my experience working with different patients and having different family and friends from being young to college to high school, and now a lot of people do not have those qualities right now. They go to work and they're tired, and they come home and they deal with their personal life, and they're kind of gassed, and their ability to perform a lot of other things along the personal and the physical and the professional spectrum is compromised. And so, you know, we call them vertically ill. And if that's you listening, this is a great opportunity to say, you know what, there is an unknown trigger out there that we know can affect certain people and not affect certain people. And I don't have all the answers about the immunity, but this might be a chance to look inward and say, well, let me look at my sleep habits. What am I eating? What am I doing wrong? Am I taking the right things that can boost my immune system? Essentially looking at all those habits and saying it's time to clean it up. Another thing I touched on is this concept of the pandemic in the pandemic. Now, we all heard of the COVID pandemic, okay? There is a pandemic before COVID that has been there that is well understood in the United States along nutritionists and wellness and integrative and functional medicine practitioners. And that is the concept of what's called metabolic syndrome. And there's a low level of kind of metabolic imbalances that occur in 2/3 of our country.
Wow.
65%. And you know, there are lab markers showing this. And, you know, the 5 lab markers, if you've never heard of this, is an increased hip to waist ratio, elevated blood sugar, elevated blood pressure or hypertension, elevated triglycerides above 150, and an HDL below 50. And so these are the kind of the metabolic objective abnormalities that we'll see when we run labs. And then it's the fatigue and the brain fog and the achiness and the inflammation and the emotional roller coaster. You know, those are a syndrome of different symptoms that shows that there's metabolic stress on an individual. And what we're seeing with the last 2 months of understanding how this virus works is the people that are very, very vulnerable from this are the vertically ill, the elderly, obviously, but the people that are dealing with this underlying pandemic or this metabolic stress. And so it is a pandemic in the pandemic. And if you fall within that, if you don't even know, you should get tested or evaluate yourself or go see a doctor that does this. Or if you suspect it, again, now is the time to kind of fix this, because that is what you can control. You can control your mind and your emotions to all this noise, and you can control your daily habits, which makes you healthy and resilient. Because in my opinion, this thing is not going away. This will be around for years to come or indefinitely. And so the likelihood that each one of us is going to be exposed to this virus or a hybrid of this virus is very, very good in the next couple of years. So again, if you haven't got it yet, now's the time to start focusing on those things. And I'm happy to outline each one of them.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love for you to go into that, because I think as most astute professionals, whether they're in the athletic realm or just, you know, anybody else that's listening or watching right now, would be the same thing. It's, hey, what can I do? How can I take this away? How can I go to apply this? You know, like things I just took away from what you just said. Control the controllables. You can control the amount of sleep that you get. You can control what you put in your body. You can control how much exercise you get, prioritizing those things. For the most of us, we're in some athletic state whether it's professionally or, we try to stay active. So there's some aspects of their life that maybe they don't necessarily control now that they absolutely can. But yeah, go through maybe a list if you've got one for us to kind of let us know what are some of the key points or high points that they can hit. Sure.
Yeah, I'll touch on it. Obviously, we get really personalized in my clinics. Blood work and genetic tests and urine tests, looking at adrenals, and we'll look at the gut. And so it's a great protocol, and that's the functional medicine protocol, is finding the underlying reason and what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong, and then give you a personalized task. That's what I believe is health and wellness, right? But kind of the flow for me as I'm thinking is, number one is your lifestyle. Number two is what you're putting in your body, your nutrition. And number three is what you could take as nutraceuticals or supplements that help support or complement those changes. Putting a mask on, that, and washing your hands, that's what we hear. And social distancing, and, those are immediate hygiene tactics that would minimize the probability of getting the virus. I understand that, but understanding how important sleep is and these different phases of sleep is very, very overlooked. And there's a book that I highly recommend, and it's by Matthew Walker, and it's Why We Sleep, and it's a great book. And he's a neurobiologist local in Berkeley, and he's got some great podcasts and he's got some great TED Talks. But I mean, he'll tell you about all the different things about these different phases, and I'll just summarize it quickly, right? The deep sleep, with like the first 3 hours of our sleep, is extremely important. It's the most important restorative hour and a half that we have in our 24-hour circadian rhythm. And if you're eating a big meal or high in carbohydrates, or a late night snack or ice cream, or drinking late, that deep sleep is mitigated or almost prevented at sometimes. And you do not have, or you are decreasing your ability to restore and repair crucial immune functions. So that's something that's very, very important to bring up. Getting on a phone, right before you go to bed, that blue light directly affects a very important hormone loop that tells you you're asleep versus awake, right? This is, melatonin and things like that. So, understanding getting off a Bluetooth or a blue light device, hopefully 90 minutes before, very important to be able to have that deep sleep. Being in a cool room with a lot of darkness is very, very important. So those are all kind of sleep habits and rituals that, if you're not doing right now, I would reconsider, because if you miss that, there's no supplement and there's no nutrition that would be able to restore that lacking of immune activation during that time.
Wow. Wow. That's it. And I can tell you, since you and I have had that conversation, even just me personally, I've looked at how I sleep. And I have a sleep number bed, so it lets me know when I move around and when I'm restless. And the nights that I've had the best sleep are when you said, hey, that first 3 hours is crucial. My best nights of sleep, the mornings I wake up feeling the most rested, clear, ready to go, ready to attack the day, when I've had that uninterrupted 3 hours. So since you've told me that, I've started to chronicle that, or I guess to note it down. And it's real. I mean, that is really, I can tell when I've had 3 initial hours of uninterrupted sleep versus when I didn't. The next day, it's night and day.
We can feel it, right? I mean, we know, I mean, we're all probably middle-aged listening to this, right? Or, and we know when we don't sleep well. I mean, there's like, I ate like crap and I'm hungover. There's like poison, and then there's something I just didn't feel right, and then when you wake up and you're like, wow, I'm powered, I'm ready to do that. It's amazing. It's amazing what it does. And I don't want to end there. The 3 hours is absolutely important, but really it's the next 4 to 5 hours where that's called REM, right? And that's where it's called synaptic pruning, and your immune system goes in and clears out all the bacteria through these things called microglia. It's called the lymphatic system, and it prunes out memories we don't need. And so that's where obviously the dreaming occurs, but the distinct phases of deep to REM, which should last anywhere from 7 to 9 hours, very, very important. that is probably one of the biggest mistakes my patients make. So if you're eating a big meal, sugary, not getting good sleep, waking up, not hydrating, and then eating the wrong foods, you're already immune suppressed. And so that's the first and most important thing that I want to talk about. Moving, I can go on and on. You know, I taught exercise phys and you know, trainer and love it and exercise every day. Just moving, you know, being sedentary over and over, and I doubt many of your listeners are very, very sedentary, but you know, having a good combo or mixture of, you know, that compound movement where you're high intensity exercise, getting, you know, your heart rate up, you know, anywhere from 8 to 24 minutes, doing that, you know, 3 to 4 times a week, that we call that high intensity or, you know, submaximal training. And then, you know, just hiking and walking and cycling and then, you know, doing the flexibility and mobility. That it's very, very important that you stay on top of the mobility routine. And I won't get into the physiology and the mechanisms, but the innate immune system and the adaptive immune system are a beautiful symphony of how we're exposed to our outside world, and exercise plays a huge role in balancing each one of those. Stress management, we're all stressed, we're all very busy, but, and many of us can't change how busy we are or maybe how not busy we are, which is stressing us out, right?
Sure.
But it really starts with, do you have a tool? Do you have something that you can do to manage or cope with that stress effectively? Do you practice mindfulness? Do you practice removing the noise and just being centered and focusing on your breath? Extremely important and very, very promising data showing what that does to the adrenal glands and how that affects your immune system. I mean, I lecture about this nationally. You know, you get somebody who's wired and stressed and not eating right and then not sleeping right, and then what you have is this combination of immune suppression where they might even that's not even COVID, they might just get something that we're exposed to every day, and because their suppression is so strong, then they're vulnerable and then they get sick. Right now is a really important time to address each one of those things with proper habits.
Wow. Incredible. It's really, really impactful stuff. I mean, I think for anybody out there to know this information, that's so important, but especially for coaches and athletic directors, why I feel this is so important, Ryan, is that they're going to be getting back on these campuses. Like you said, there's still a lot of learning potentially that they're doing, but still a lot of fear being, you know, pushed down their throats. And when do we get back on campus, and how sterile and clean is it going to be? And like you said, kind of those immediate, you know, hygienic type focal points where this is now taking a step back and saying, hey, you need to make sure that you're good. And there's a lot that goes into that to make sure that regardless of what you're exposed to on a campus, within a team, in a locker room, whatever it is, once you get back on campus, you're putting yourself in the best position that even if you are confronted with this virus, you're putting your body in the best possible position to fight it, to stage it off, right?
That's exactly right. We evolved for hundreds of thousands of years being exposed to parasites and viruses and bacteria, and it has not changed.
Yeah.
So we have an amazing, very intelligent immune system that has evolved throughout this time. And that's, I'm trying to advocate things that we have done as human beings from our primitive lifestyle to keep us resilient. And there are obviously anomalies, and, you know, I'm a type 1 diabetic, you know, I have my challenges, and with my spleen gone, I could be considered immune suppressed. And so, you know, it's hard to peg everybody as that, you know, you do these things and you're good. But that narrative, that talk is not being discussed. If you look on the national news, it's you still need to do this and do this and stay away. And I'm not disagreeing with that. I don't want to, you know, get into a debate on that. But to your point, we're all going to resume our life, and we're going to be around the bacteria. And, you know, think about it. We have 100 trillion strains of bacteria in our body. It's called our microbiome. That we are nothing but bacteria. We're more bacteria than we are human cells. And so we coexisted with this bacteria. And so understanding how you feed that bacteria through the proper nutrition, right? And through certain supplements and feeding that so it understands the outside world is very important, because we're going to be around it. And if we do get the COVID virus, your immune system is going to be strong. And the first line of defense is what we call the IgAs, the secretory IgAs. It's the mucosal layers of our nose and our mouth and our throat and our gut. And, there's key nutrients that are needed that you could be exposed to any one of these viruses, but your immune system is so in tune that your innate immune system sees it and it can handle it before it starts to replicate within your body. That's where zinc comes in. Very important to get zinc through diet, obviously. That's where it's important to get probiotic-rich foods or prebiotic-rich foods that feed that microbiome. Staying away from the sugar, which suppresses your immune system like that. Quality good fats, avocado oil, olive oil, coconut oil, ghee, really good quality fats that help your body be in a state of anti-inflammation rather than pro-inflammation, like the vegetable oils and the processed crap. That will suppress your immune system too and make you inflamed.
Wow.
Yeah, and just seeking all the phytonutrients that are in colorful, non-starchy vegetables, those contain biological substances that are key for our overall health, especially our immune system. Just evaluating all of that and just doing your best to try to bring those things in, because your immune system requires it. And if you can't, then that's when the third thing comes in, right? Lifestyle, diet, and then take supplements.
Yeah.
And right now, I have almost every one of my patients on a defense protocol, which gives them, above and beyond all the immune supporting nutrients that we need. So it takes their immune system here. Obviously, things happen. You can't sleep perfect all the time, and we're trying to manage our stress. And we got travel, and there's all kinds of different things. So we want our immune system here. If it's here, that's where the supplements come in, and those are things like vitamin C, D3, zinc, like I told you about. Certain mushrooms and probiotics. There's certain herbs that are important. There's a handful of things that we can take that complement what we put in our body and how we live our life.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So if I take my hit list from you, say number one, I got to make sure that I get good sleep, and those first 3 hours are crucial. Stay away from the blue light 90 minutes before bed, and get myself center my breathing, get myself into a place where I can get good 3 hours to at least start with. And then those next 4 to 5 hours are crucial to. I love it.
Both very important, but just balancing it out. Yeah,
balancing it out. I love it. That's great. And then obviously the nutritional aspect of it second, and then the supplementation, whatever you're not getting. And I know you've said before, like the leafy greens, the purple, the darker the what you're eating, the better, right?
Just variety. It's eat the rainbow. Purple, oranges, obviously the greens, but the yellows. Each one of them have unique, what's called phytonutrients. And so, great fiber and trace minerals and, things like bone broth, really good for the gut, really good for collagen. There's a handful of things that people could do. And it's just a simple swap from looking at maybe snack things to just replacing it. And, there's all kinds of resources that I can advocate. I have, a great protocol on my website if people want to look at that about what they need to take. If you're writing down notes and, because obviously these are doses and different things like that. So, happy to share that at the very end. So you're not just sitting here taking notes, but it can feel overwhelming if you don't do all of it. But if you just make one easy change and kind of develop it and remove a habit, it doesn't happen overnight, but you wouldn't believe the changes that my patients have made since May. We're going into August right now, and we're talking about essentially like 10 to 12 weeks. I've had profound changes with people in that quick of a time where they realized, holy moly, I need to do the things different. And they felt like this was such a lifestyle change, and you wouldn't believe the progress they've made. And now is the time for everybody, whether you tiptoe into the pool or you dive in or do a cannonball, whatever speed works for you, you can improve it. And And that's the message we're trying to get out.
Absolutely. I love it. Everything that you're offering up is about getting to the root of an issue, right? And it's putting your body in a position to be able to defend itself versus kind of the, everything that we keep hearing about, not to say that they aren't important things to do, like having, good hygiene and wash your hands often and, all those things. But I love it. Talking about really identifying the pandemic within the pandemic and those underlying conditions, and really putting yourself in a position to be as healthy as you possibly can. I love it. One of the other things that you mentioned too, you were talking about resiliency. And I think people that are in leadership positions like coaches and athletic directors, they're gonna have to make decisions. I don't envy any of them right now. It's going to be tough. When do we go back? When do we, how do we keep the health and well-being of our student athletes and coaches and faculty? And I mean, it's a really challenging situation to be in right now. But kind of some of the things that I've learned from a leadership standpoint, looking at really what's important. I think the resiliency aspect of it is important. And for a leader to be resilient, they can't do that if they're lying down, if they're sick, if they get knocked off their feet because of this virus or anything else. So I think, those were some of the things that I think were really poignant about what you talked about is, hey, this is promoting resiliency. You're going to be able to be a resilient leader because you're physically putting yourself and mentally putting yourself in a position to take on these challenges, even if you are confronted with a virus like this down the road. Really, 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 really good stuff. We'll loop back one more time with kind of this phase that people are going through from fear to learning to the creation phase. If we zero in on a student athlete, so rewind, a handful of years ago when you were a student athlete, and knowing what you know now, what would be some advice, maybe condensed version of that? What kind of advice would you look to give a high school or college student athlete now?
For me, the biggest lesson that I got from athletics was learning how to fail and lose, and how I applied my approach and my understanding of those, and that drive and that spark that came from tasting that applies to my everyday life. And so for the student athlete listening, no one likes losing. I don't like losing. I'm very, very competitive. We work hard and we train hard and we get our mind right and our bodies right. And then somebody beats us or things don't go right. I mean, that's the beauty, or I guess burden of sports, is learning how to lose. Having clarity about what does that mean? What did you learn from it? And how do I apply it to the next thing? That's an overall life lesson. That would be the biggest take home that I could share for the student athlete.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. You win and you learn. You don't lose. When you lose, you're learning. So, and then I love it being able to take that, the learning of the loss, and how do you then apply that to how you can get better. I love it. And then for the athletic directors and the coaches that are out there, we're heading back into school's going to be starting here pretty soon, right? I mean, some of the school years have been pushed back, whether it's 100% online learning to start. Some of them have said, hey, we're going to push it back a handful of weeks or a month, and we still plan to be on a campus. It's going to be different for everybody. But, you could talk to a coach or an athletic director that's going to be back on a campus potentially soon, or, preparing their student athletes for competition, whether it's, later on this fall or the ones that have been moved out to the spring. What would you say to an athletic director or coach heading into this type of season?
Well, they're a lot like almost any business owner or commissioner or CEO, right? I mean, really, that's what they are. They're managing a large group of people that are looking for them for guidance and structure. And so, I feel you. I have those same challenges. And I've shifted my mind around it. This is a difficult situation, and I don't have all the answers, but it's a great quote: difficult roads lead to beautiful destinations. And and it's really, really true. If you in your mind have intentions about what kind of athletic program you want to have, and you write that and you have clarity in that, this is now an opportunity where if you've been so busy to have lost that intention or vision, is write it down. Write it down, and what am I trying to convey? How am I a leader, like I first brought up? Because the destination is really what we're all going for. And this journey has changed, and our path has completely changed. And so I can sit here, in front of a computer and say this, and I'm applying it to myself in my own life, in my own business, but embrace this. Be transparent, be honest, say, we're going to make things better, be a leader. Write it down and look at what you're writing down, and are you doing the correct things to be able to have that visualization and that intention become a reality? Because it is a beautiful destination, no matter how cloudy and noisy it sounds right now. This is the great equalizer, and we will look back and go, man, I wish I would have used this time to evaluate what I could have done better. And so that would be my advice for the ADs, is just kind of look inward and look at this as a beautiful opportunity that you can make things better, learn from, and share with everybody that looks up to you for your guidance.
I love it. Therein lies the opportunity, right? There's all this chaos going on around us, and you can choose to focus on the opportunity that you have and make your respective team, program, athletic department better by choosing to focus on, hey, go from fear, learn, create something new, and just keep your sights focused on that. I love it. Well, Ryan, as we look to wrap up, man, is there anything else that you felt would be really important or meaningful to share with our listeners today?
Yeah, I'd say my last piece of advice is something that I've worked on personally over the last year, but really since the beginning of the year. Yeah. And this is just my opinion, but there's so much noise. There's so much noise the news and what people say, and there's so many myths, and this fact is debunked, and there's so much confusion going on right now. And my advice is, if you can find an opportunity to remove the noise, turn off this chronic hysteria, sit down, breathe, relax, think, practice being present and aware. You wouldn't believe what a benefit that applies to your spirit, your soul, your mindset. I'm advocating this with every single person that I come across, which is turn off that TV set. Don't watch the news. Turn off your phone or put it aside for a second. I've implemented this new, challenge with myself where I don't look at my phone for the first hour of the day and then don't look at it for an hour before I go to bed. And, these little addictions where I would look at it and realize that they're non-serving habits, and just kind of being there and being aware, only helps every aspect of your life. And so, that's what I'm advocating right now. I'm really big on this. And so I'll kind of end with that recommendation.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, it's good, man. We get a lot of wisdom nuggets here for sure. I mean, this is going to be great. I know that our client base and our listeners, our viewers are going to love. They're going to love this information. They're going to be able to take a lot from this. And as we like to, one of our mantras here is educate and empower. And you have done that, my friend. So I appreciate you coming on and educating people on, what they can do to control the controllables, improve their life, take advantage of the opportunity. You've empowered them to go out and do that. So everybody, I hope you got a lot from it. And we'll be posting this on our website. Ryan, you want to tell everybody real quick where they can get more information if they want to reach out to you or just learn more about some of the things that you've got on your website?
Yeah, the website's lazaruswellness.com. You can send me an email. It'll get forwarded to me. There's some media on there. I'm working on the whole social media. I graduated high school in '95, and I missed that social media window. I'm working on it. I do have one. It's Dr. Ryan Lazarus, is my Instagram, and that's one of my goals to get that going. And actually posted kind of an infographic about that, the phase that we talked about, some fear and the learning. So that's pretty cool to look at. But yeah, there's a COVID protocol I put in there about evidence-based guidelines of what people can take with dosages on there. Obviously, not knowing how to personalize that, it's some great information to start with. But yeah, I'm happy to help, and I appreciate you having me on, and appreciate you and what you're doing. So thank you.
Yeah, you got it, Ryan. You're right. Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming on, and as we continue to navigate the pandemic and the future and what it all holds, we're going to get you back on here again. We'll get some more information out to our listeners and our viewers, and yeah, really appreciate you hopping on, man, and doing it for a second time.
Yeah, you got it. Thanks again.
All right.
Have a good one.
All right, brother. You got it, man. Thank you.